Greetings, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome to our last episode of reading Plato's Apologies. Please forgive the fans, we have to have air circulation here because it's kind of tough here. Today we're dealing with the final outcome of Plato's Apology. We're using the West translation. We will be looking today at pages Stephanon's pages 83e to 48a. So let's just go start. We went already through the first speech, which dealt with the trial, his defense. He was found guilty by a short a 60 margin vote, which he kind of made a thing. Then he did with the appeal. Second speech was his speech about how he should be punished, and as we talked, he didn't really do that. He kind of he read he how instead of understanding the punishment, he understood it as getting what he deserved. But the question was how would it, and he recommended giving himself free meals at the Praetorium, which is one of the highest honors the city has to give. So not taking it seriously, and then he mocked. He said, "Well, what about other things?" And he kind of constantly made it either he made light of the whole even fine even, and he proposes at first nothing, a single mina that he had, but then he gives another recommendation based upon his students, not students, but his basically Plato and Apollodorus and Crito. They offered to. Needless to say, this didn't go well. The jury votes for his death. The voting between the penalties proposed by the accuser and accused, the jury condemned Socrates to death. And he had time to make some further remarks before taken away to prison to await execution. And what happens here? So therefore, this is the idea he says here. So he gets condemned. He pisses the jury. Even jurors who voted innocent now voted for him to die. Okay, so a little for the sake of a little time, men of Athens, you'll get a name and be charged with the responsibility for those wishing to revile the city for having killed Socrates, or Sophos, a wise man. Okay. For those wishing to reproach you will assert that I am wise, even if I am not. At any rate, if you had waited a short time, this would have come about for you on its own accord. In other words, I'm old. I just waited. I will not die anyways. For you see that my age is already far advanced in life and close to death. I say this not at all to you, but to those who voted to condemn me to death. Okay. So you could have gotten the same deed if you just waited. Okay. But now you killed me. Okay. In other words, I also and this will bring the city blame that everyone who doesn't like Athens was not. See, you killed a wise man. You killed the smart people. You're a dumb city. He goes. I continue at D 38 D in this sense. For I will say the following to those same ones. Perhaps you suppose, men of Athens, that I have been convicted because I was lost for the sort of speeches that would have persuaded you, if I had supposed that I should do and say anything to escape the penalty. In other words, to escape is like flee the penalty. It means to flee prosecution. Far from it. Rather, I had been convicted because I was at a loss, not however speeches, but for daring and shamelessness, the willingness to say the sort of things to you that you would have been most pleased to hear. Me wailing and lamenting and doing and saying many other things unworthy of me, as I affirm, such things as you have been accustomed to hear from others. But neither did I suppose that I should do anything unsuitable to a free man because of danger, nor do I regret that I made my defense speech like this. I much prefer to die having made my defense speech in this way than to live in that way. In other words, if I had to humiliate myself by begging and doing unseemly things, no, that's not. I'd rather have been done what I've done and die than to live and act in that shameful way. For neither in a court case nor in war should I or anyone else devise a way to escape death by doing anything at all. In other words, you can't. In other words, in a court case or war, should I or anyone else devise a way to escape death by doing anything at all? In other words, decent men would not use get in danger or war. Death is a possibility. There are ways you can do things. You do anything to prevent that. Well, those many things that you have to do to prevent dying or suffering the consequence may be unseemly and base. Okay, and Socrates won't do that. I won't go there. Right. In battle, often becomes clear that one might escape death, at least by letting go of his arms and turning around to supplicate his pursuers. And there are other devices to escape death in each danger. And if he dares do and say anything at all, in other words, there's ways to escape danger and death by saying and doing things that are just not right. In that sense, he's saying that. Um, but I suspect that it is not hard, men, to escape death, but it is much harder to escape villainy. In other words, it's not difficult to escape death, but it's much easier to escape death than escape villainy. Okay, in other words, bad reputation or being held as a villain or held some a bad esteem. For it runs faster than death. Villainy runs faster than death. This is interesting. Again, a turn of the Greek is alliterative jingle in Greek, as note 74 in West says. He goes da 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 da. It's like so. Tatilan tatu die. In other words, it's a nice. Socrates showed that he was a wordsmith in this sense. He put together in this kind of a nice little jingle. And now I, since I am slow and old, have been caught by the slower, while my accusers, since they are very clever and sharp, are caught by the faster and evil. Because I'm old, so I'm caught by death. Whereas my accusers, who are quick and fat, young and quick, they caught villainy. Okay, I think that was a greater evil, an evil in that sense. And now I go away, condemned to you to pay the penalty of death, while they have been convicted by the truth or wretchedness of an injustice. I abide by my penalty, and so do they. In other words, my penalty is I'm going to die. Their penalty is that they're going to be wicked and bad and blamed for my death. Okay, um, um, perhaps these things even had to be so, and I suppose there is due measure in them. After this, I desire to deliver. After this, I desire to deliver oracles to you, and O you who voted to condemn me. For in fact, I am now where human beings particularly deliver oracles when they're about to die. Here's Socrates may allude here to two famous death scenes, as Patroclus' last words when he's slayed by Hector, and Hector's last words when he's slayed by Achilles. Right? I mean, someone's about to die, they foreshadow the future. Right? Um, I affirm, you men who have convicted me to death, that vengeance will come upon you after my death, and much harsher by Zeus than the sword you give me by killing me. For you have now done this deed, supposing that you will be released from giving an account of your life. But it will turn out much the opposite for you, as I affirm. Where they will be more who will refute you, who I have now been holding back. You did not perceive them, and they will be harsher in that they are younger, and you will be more indignant. For if you suppose that killing human beings you will prevent someone from reproaching you for not living correctly, you do not think beautifully, nobly. In other words, he's saying you think you're going to kill by killing people, killing me, and killing people. You're going to avoid being criticism of that that you are ignoble or you're not wise, that you're a con man or you're not really as smart as you think you are. This is not going to happen. Okay, and he says he's been holding him back. Socrates says that I've been holding these people back. I've been dealing with them. They've been paying attention to me, but now I'm gone. They're going to, these younger and much more aggressive ones are going to come after you. Um, For that kind of release is not at all possible or beautiful, noble. Rather, it's the kind that is both noblest and easiest is not to restrain others, but to equip oneself to be best possible. There's not, in other words, the best defense is not to restrain or prevent others or kill them, or stop them or restrain them, but rather be the best possible person you can be, and know how to defend yourself. So, having divined these things for you who voted against me, I'm released. But with those who have voted for me, I would be pleased to converse on behalf of this affair what happened. While the officials are occupied and I do not yet go to the place where, when I go, I must die. Please stay with me, men, for this much time. Nothing prevents our telling tales. In other words, again, telling tales, diomythos, as note 77, diomythologian, which is what contains the word myth, tale, and story, often associated with stuff told by the poets. Okay, so we let us start telling tales to one another as long as possible. For I am willing to display to you as to friends whatever this thing means which has occurs to me just now. For for me, judges, you are called judges. I would address you correctly. Something wondrous has happened. For my customary divination, or the daimon, has always been frequent in my former times, opposed me even in small matters if I were about to do something incorrectly. Now you yourselves see what has occurred to me. These very things which someone might suppose to be and are believed to be extreme evils. But the sign of the god did not oppose me when I left my house this morning, nor when I came up here to the law courts, nor anywhere in the speech when I was about to say anything. Although in many other speeches it has often stopped me in the middle while I was speaking. In other words, he's saying his daemon. In other words, he said, but the daemon did nothing. The daemon didn't act today. Didn't act. He didn't stop me to come, this morning. It didn't stop me on the road here. It didn't happen in the middle of my speaking, and it has happened. I'm speaking, and the diamond appears to me, and I stop speaking. And it says, okay, right? Um, um, so, but as it is, it was nowhere opposed me either in any deed or speech concerning this action. Of course, everything I've done here, Damon approved. Okay, what then do I take to be the cause of this? I will tell you. Perhaps what occurred to me has turned out to be good, and there's no way that those of us take it correctly who suppose that being dead is bad. In my view, a great proof of this has happened. For there is no way that the accustomed sign would not have opposed me unless I was about to do something good. In other words, if in other words, the sign would have opposed me if I was not going to do something good. So therefore, this proof that this is kind of an evidence that the dying isn't bad. Because if dying was really bad, he would have stopped me from doing what I did. Well, that's kind of a bad argument, but but it's a sign. Let's talk about this. Let us also think in the following way how great a hope there is that it is good. Now, being dead is either two things. It is like being nothing, and the dead man has no perception of anything, or else in accordance with the things that has been said, it happens to be a sort of change, a migration of the soul from the place here to another place. So it's either two things: either it's the nothingness, or a migration of a soul from one place to another place. And if in fact there is no perception, but it is like a sleep that in which the sleeper has no dream at all, death would be a wondrous game. For I suppose that if someone had to select the night in which he slept so soundly that he did not even dream, and had to compare the other nights and the days of his own life with that night, and then had to say on consideration how many days and nights of his own life he had lived better and more presently than that night, when I suppose that the great king himself, the great king is Cyrus, I think. Hold on. This is Minos. Sorry. No. 79 is who King of Persia, the great king of Persia, the great king of Persia, right? Not to mention private men would discover that they are easy to count on comparisons with other days and nights. So if death is something like this, I at least will say it is a gain, for all time, for all time appears in this way indeed to be nothing more than one night. On the other hand, if death's like a journey from here to another place, and if the things there are said to be true, that in fact all the dead are there, then what greater good could there be than this, judges? For if one who arrived in Hades, released from those here, claims to be judges, will find those who are judges in truth, then the very ones who have been said to judges there, Minos and Rithadamos and Archeros and Tipirenos, and these are West gives the things. West gives in note 80 the list of who these people are, these god, these heroes and demi. No, these would be the people who judge in hell, right? Minos, the great king of Crete, god, he was king of Greek who became a god in that sense. He seems to be the judge in the afterlife. Euthyphro, the brother of Minos, too, his reputation for great justice. So people of great justice, right? And then Archias and Pindar says, most careful of mortals gave judgments even to gods, right? Tripolines, legendary king of Eleusis near Athens, where he learned about the goddess Demeter and mysteries of the seasons and growth, right? These are the great wise men. So, and he goes that from these, Minos, Rithadamos, Enos, and Tippotomius, and those of the other demigods who turned out to be just in their own lives, would this journey be a paltry one? In other words, I'm going to meet these great just people. Or again, to associate with Orpheus and Mucius, or Hesiod, or Homer. How much would any of you give? For I am willing to die many times if these things are true, especially especially for myself, spending time there would be wondrous. Whatever I happen to meet Parmenides, Palamedes, and the Telemenian Ajax, or any one of the ancients who died because of unjust judgments, I would compare my own experience with theirs. And I suppose it would not be unpleasant. And certainly the greatest thing is that I would pass my time examining and searching out among those there, just as uh, 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 just as I do to those here. And who among them is wise and supposes he is wise, but is not? How much would one give, judges, and to examine him who led the great army against Troy, or Odysseus, or Sisyphus, or the thousands of others who one might mention, both men and women, to converse and associate with them and examine them there would be inconceivable happiness. In other words, unthinkable happiness, being able to talk to the gods, the dead, all the great heroes of the past, and be able to go to them and to examine whether they are wise or not, to converse with all the great wise people, reputation of old, to do exactly what he's been doing here, there. Certainly, certainly those there surely do not kill on this account, and those there are happier than those here, not only in other things, but also they are immortal henceforth from the time of the rest of time. And at least if the things that are said are in fact true. But you two judges should be of good hope towards death, and should think that if one thing to be true, that there is nothing bad for a good man, whether living or dead, that the gods are not without care of his troubles, nor have any present troubles arisen on their own accord. But it's clear to me that it is now better, after all, for me to be dead and to have been released from troubles. This is also why the sign did not return to did not turn me away anywhere, and that I am not at all angry at those who voted to condemn me and at my accusers. I'm not angry at them. No, no, they done me a favor. He says, and yet it is not with this thought in mind that they voted to condemn me and accuse me. Rather, they suppose they would harm me. For this, they are worthy for blame. They thought they would harm him, and therefore they killed him that they could harm him. They're not going to harm me in that sense. This men, however, I beg of them, when my sons grow up, punish them, men, and pain them in the same way I pained you, if they seem to you to care for money or anything else before virtue, and if they are reputed to be something when they're nothing, reproach them just as I did you. Tell them, tell them that they do not care for the things they should, and that they suppose they are something when they're worth nothing. And if you do these things, we will have been treated justly by you, both I myself and my sons. So this is at 42a, and this is the end. He goes, but now it's time to go away. I to die, you to live. Of which of us goes to a better thing is unclear to everyone except to the God. Now, the dialogue ends with this: the God ends the dialogue here. So that what begins this, if the apology begins um, uh, 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 with him introduction to the men of Athens, it ends with referring the gods. Okay, the God. Not any particular God, but the God in general, the ruling God. So again, this ends our reading of Plato's Apology. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments below, and I will respond to it. Okay, you ask some questions, please. I'll do what I can to give you an answer and things like this. If I see the question, if you like this, like. If you want to subscribe, do subscribe and see more of these things. As I'm going to be turning to Thucydides next, so that's going to be the big thing. And if you've follow me on social media below, please. It's that there below. And again, subscribe if you want to see more of these things. Well, take care and have a good day. Bye bye.